Assalamualaikum everybody, welcome back to Youth Perspectives. This week again we have our guest Azra Mirza, and today we're going to be continuing our discussion about technology. Last week we spoke about the negative aspect of technology and how using it too much can have a negative effect on our lives, an adverse effect on our lives. However, this week we kind of wanted to focus on another perspective about technology, and specifically we wanted to take a look at its benefits, because of course technology, like we mentioned last week, of course it's not a bad thing if you control the time that you use it. So using it with your limits, technology can be a great asset to our lives. So this week we're going to kind of look at the positive side of technology and how we can effectively use it to our benefit. And just to kind of start off this discussion about technology, I wanted to talk about some misconceptions about it. So Azra, do you want to share any misconceptions that we have now about technology?
Yes, definitely. Basically, we just want to clarify that our last session we talked about the harmful effects of technology, but that in no way means that technology in itself is a bad thing, just like Rabab mentioned, because the impact of technology on our lives is real. The effect it has on our lives is real, and we can't really change that fact. We can't ignore that fact, and it's our responsibility to live in this day and age to keep up with the times. Because in the past 18 years, we have seen so many technological advancements that people call this age the era of science and technology. That's what it's known as, because we've seen so many advancements over the years. So it's our responsibility to obviously not sit under a rock and just stay away from all these things. We obviously should be active and engaged and well versed in these things, but we have to understand the limitations and understand how to effectively use these resources to our advantage. So that's just one thing that we wanted to clarify, that technology is not necessarily a bad thing, but how you use it can, define it as either a good thing or a bad thing, because everything is good. Technology is good, but with its own limitations. So we just have to be careful about that.
Okay, so Azra, that was a great misconception that you cleared, and that I'm going to reinforce that, technology isn't all that bad. If you use it within your limits, it can actually be a really great tool to do many things, and that's kind of what we reserve today's discussion for. After we discuss the benefits of technology, we'll move on to talk a little bit about a great personality in Karbala, and this was Bibi Zainab Salamullah alayha. So let's begin by talking about some of the benefits that we can get from technology. So one of the main things that should obviously pop in all of our minds when we speak about technology is communication. Technology, and I just wanted to clarify in today's session, the technology we're talking about we're talking about our devices with screens. Technology is like a really, really general term, and so that could refer to anything. That could refer to cars, that could literally refer to anything right now, because it's a very general topic. But what our sessions are focusing on is the technology with screens. For example, our cell phones, our iPads, our laptops, things that we use in our day-to-day lives. So coming back to what I was saying, number one, technology allows us to effectively communicate with other people. And this is very, very essential, especially to our society today, because sometimes, for example, if you have family that lives really, really far away and you want to stay connected with them, technology allows you to do that. In fact, now we have technology like FaceTime and Skype where you can actually see the person you want to talk to. So that's actually a really, really great benefit, because in Islam tells us that we need to stay close to our family members, and we have to keep close connections with them. So technology is a path that allows us to do that. So of course, if you have someone who lives really far from you, with technology you can talk to them, and so that's a great benefit of that. In addition, when it comes to communication, for example, say you're at school and if you need to call your mom or your dad, you don't have to go all the way home or something, or send them a mail or something like that to tell them that you need them, right? You can simply just call them. So technology makes communication very, very efficient, because you can immediately, within seconds or minutes, you can talk to the person you want to, if they pick up, of course. So technology in that way is a great way to communicate with others, and that's why it is a crucial benefit for us. So that's what I believe is one major benefit of technology. In addition, in our modern technology today, we have in our phones, in all of our phones, I'm sure, we have a calendar. So, and we have like, we can make schedules on that calendar. And, you know, technology, essentially, it allows us to organize our time. So say, for example, like, especially like in school, we tend to have so many classes, like when you get into your higher grades, you know, like starting in middle school, actually, you have multiple classes. So in order to manage those classes, in order to manage your exams and your tests and everything, technology allows you to place all of these things on a calendar, and you can actually know when everything is and not forget about it. And so it allows you to be more organized. And a good sign of a moment is that, you know, they organize their time and they don't waste a lot of time. So having a schedule in your phone or whatever technology you're using really allows you to effectively utilize that time. So Azra, do you want to share any benefits of technology with us today?
Yes, there are actually many benefits, and the one Rabab mentioned was actually one of them. Some that I would like to mention. The first benefit of technology is the access to information that we have, and the access to information, the fact that technology really helps us with learning. And just to clarify, learning doesn't have to necessarily be limited to the classroom. Learning happens every single day. You know, like if you get into a car accident, you learn, okay, I shouldn't have done that. Learning is, you know, encompasses every single thing in your life. So the access to information and the potential to learn like dramatically increases with the access to technology, because for example, you can use this information to search up the news and be updated on the current events that are happening, the current affairs of the world, which is very important for us because as Muslims, as people in today's day and age, we have to be well informed of what's going on. We have to be well informed of the affairs of the other people, because we have to know that what's going on and how to appropriately, you know, react to what's going on, what measures to take because of that. It's our responsibility. We can't just sit here in our own lives and, you know, be busy with our own things. We have to really engage in the lives of other people and what's happening in other parts of the world. So the access to the news and current events is one big thing, because we know what's happening in other parts of the world like with a few clicks. Back in the day, people would have to wait for months for letters to come or messengers to come, and then by then the news would be outdated. But for us, as soon as something is happening, we find out about it. And in fact, sometimes, like, you know, those live programs, like this, like things go, while things are happening, the people are like live there on the scene of the incident, and they're there reporting live from the incident. So it's really interesting, and it really helps us be well aware of what's going on. So ignorance is no excuse for us in this time, like not at all. And then also with academic information, because back in the day, people had to go to the library and open up encyclopedias and dictionaries to like manually find information. But for us, just, you know, we type a few words and click the search engine, and we have millions and thousands of results showing up with that relevant topic that we search up for. So it's really interesting, because if we want to find out about anything, and this can help like in science, math, history. It helps a lot in school, in the classrooms. We can take online classes now. We don't even have to go physically to a classroom. I've taken many online classes before just by sitting at home on a desk, and I've learned so many things, and I don't have to really go and have face-to-face time with a professor or students, and I could still benefit from the class as much as anyone else would, because the technology allows us to do that. So it's really great in that sense. And then finally, technology, the access to information portion, it helps us gain Islamic knowledge as well, because there's so many, you know, du'as and, you know, Quranic resources, so many hadiths, so many Islamic things that we can actually access on the internet or access through technology, which we otherwise couldn't do, you know, in the previous years, because we'd have to go manually find books, find authentic books, find that one translation of the Quran that we liked. But now it's just all on our phones, on our devices via the internet. We could just search it up and it's there. So it's really great, and we need to take advantage of the fact that technology gives us access to information, and it really helps us in learning, because with this we have no excuse to be ignorant. We have no excuse to not know, because we can just so easily find out things when we want to find them out. With that being said, we have to be very careful about what information we feed ourselves and what information we take in and believe, because technology is a blessing, but also in a way, if there's so much information, all of it obviously cannot be correct. So we have to obviously be really careful in what we're reading And it's not really that hard to figure out if information is misleading or untrue or partially correct. All we have to do is just do some extra research or just use your common sense. I mean, sometimes we hear things or we see things online and just like logically speaking, it can't make sense. So just be a little careful and don't always believe everything you hear. Because in today's day and age, we see people always like forwarding you messages and you're just like, okay, really, is this true? And you see things go viral and it's not necessarily correct information. So just be careful about what you believe, but if you are careful, the internet's a blessing because it provides us with so much information. Something else, like Rabab mentioned, it really helps in communication. Back, a generation before, people would have to write letters to each other. They would have to really wait to travel to another country to meet their family, to meet their friends, to keep in touch with the people that they care about. But in today's day and age, we have things like video calls, messaging. We can send pictures and videos to people. Like my aunt from Australia always sends us like pictures like, oh, look, your cousins are doing this. We went to the zoo today. And it's just really great to know what's going on in the lives of the people that you love. So it's a really great way to keep those relationships, to maintain those relationships, and it really helps to build unity as well, because a lot of the times if we didn't have phones, we would always have to rely on us going and seeing people face to face, and obviously in our busy lives we might not have enough time. Back in the day, it was back like in the Prophet's time, obviously the cities and towns were so small, people would always see each other face to face anyway. But living in a huge city, or living in America, or wherever you live, obviously it's more spread apart now, so it's really hard to like go and physically meet people. So I know in the previous session we mentioned that in a way that could be a bad thing, because then it encourages you to sit at home and never go meet people. But as long as you maintain that balance, as long as you meet people when you have to face, but when you cannot, you have that option to really communicate with them immediately. And if there's an emergency, you can call them immediately. You can really keep in touch with the people that you really need to keep in touch with. And on top of that, for example, things like Google Drive, Google Docs. If you're having a group project, you have like multiple people on the same document, and at the same time you can edit the same document. So it's really cool. You can share the same slides, share the same photos, share the same albums, and it's really, really interesting because it allows people to connect on levels that they could not connect before. And then lastly, something that technology really, really helps us with is cost efficiency, because back in the day, people would have to spend a lot of money on things, and today technology just does those things for us. Back in the day, people had to pay to call others on their phones. People had to pay to like buy the materials to like make the food, and then you have to pay to like cook the food, and it was very, very, very like it was too much of a hassle. But today we just go to like a store, and for $2 we buy a meal and we call it a day. And it's really, really interesting because technology has allowed us to save money on so many things. For example, we don't even have to buy paperback books anymore. We just have an e-reader. Like buy an e-reader and you have like thousands and millions of free books just at your fingertips. All the information is free. We don't have to go out and buy dictionaries, buy encyclopedias. Just search it up on the internet and it's there. So much information for free, so much news for free. People have to like pay for newspapers back in the day. We don't have to do that. Everything's free, so or if it's not free, it's really, really cheap. So it's really, really great that we can save money, and with the money we save, we can use it on more important things. Like, you can just give it in charity. Like, oh my God, I saved so much money, let me just give it away in charity. Or you can use it for actually important things. So cost efficiency is another thing. So just to recap, the 3 things that I mentioned that are beneficial when it comes to technology is the access to information and the fact that it makes learning so easy, the fact that it really helps with communication and keeping in touch with the people you care about, and the fact that it's very cost efficient and it saves you a lot of money.
Yeah, Azra, those were actually some very, very important and very, very good points you made there. So I'm going to kind of just run back through Azra's points. And number 1, that the technology that we use in our day-to-day lives provides us access to the news, to current events. And as people in our society, it is our duty to know and be aware of what's going on around us. For example, if there's oppression happening somewhere, if there is some injustice happening somewhere, it's our responsibility to know that. And especially if that injustice is happening to Muslims and that's on the news, and if we know that as a current event, then it's our duty to go out and to protest and to try to make in our efforts whatever we can do in our limited capacity to help those people. So simply using our technology to know about these current events will allow us to participate in helping those people around the globe that really need our help, that really need us to raise awareness for them. And that's how we have all of these protests that go on. So essentially, technology gives us access to this information that allows us to play such an important role in our society. If we didn't have technology, we would not, our screen technology, then we would have no way of knowing, well, except like the newspaper, but that's, as technology is advancing, that's becoming, people are using that less. And another thing, like Azra was saying, that technology makes things more cost efficient. So instead of having the daily paper, that kind of voice paper, using our technology allows us to save that. Coming back to the point I was explaining before, that technology allows us to know about current events, and it allows us to play a role in these current events. Because if we don't know what's going on around, we may know locally what's going on around us, but there's no way we can know what's going on around us, like millions of, like thousands of miles away, if we don't have this central device that allows us to know these things. So that was a great point that you made, Azra, that it allows us to know about our current events, and it's very important for us, especially as Muslims, to know about these current events, to know what things are happening to our kind of people. And just to simply, it's always good, our imams alayhi salam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he encourages us to acquire knowledge, and simply knowing about our current events, the things that are going on around us, that's acquiring knowledge. So again, that goes into the second point Azra was explaining, that technology gives us access to so much, first of all, general knowledge, and number two, it gives us so much access to Islamic knowledge. Number one, the general knowledge, for example, if you have a really hard homework question, and instead of you having to look through so many books to find the answer to that question, that takes up so much time, you can simply, with a click of a button, you can just look it up on your phone, and you can find the answer on Google. So it can really, really help you in that way. And so it allows us to acquire basic knowledge. Or say if you're really curious about something, like, I don't know, if you have a question about, why is grass green? I'm just saying a random question. Then instead of going through so many books to figure out that one question, and using so much time just invested in that one question, you can simply do your research and look it up. Technology gives us a way to look up information, to research stuff that can increase our knowledge. And ultimately, that's what I'm trying to tie all of this into our Islamic beliefs, that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to acquire as much knowledge as we possibly can, and technology is a great way to do that if we use it in the right way, of course. And number two, Islamic knowledge. For example, I see nowadays, if you see, instead of back, a couple of years back, people, when they used to read nohas and majlis, they would write everything out. But instead of investing the time to do that, you can just read your nohas or your qasidas from your phone. So, that really saves paper, first of all. That saves your time. And, you can efficiently do it on your phone, your iPad, or whatever technology you have. So in that sense, it gives us access, it allows us to do our Islamic things through it also. Like, for example, I know there's applications on your phone, like there's Quran Explorer, there's different applications that allow you to read the Quran. And I know there's also a compass on our phone. Whenever, if you're traveling and you ever need to do namaz, we always need a compass, because we need to know the direction towards the Kaaba so we can pray namaz. And nowadays, we don't even have to go out and buy a compass. You can have a compass app on your phone, and that's really, really efficient for you, because again, like Azra mentioned, that allows us to save money, and you have everything right there on your phone or whatever technology you're using. So it really allows us it helps us in our Islamic life to easily and efficiently do our Islamic duties. And to acquire Islamic knowledge. So if you ever want to research an imam, go on the credible websites, of course, because of course, like Azra said, sometimes information is spread around on technology, and I know that this happens a lot, that, it's not correct, 100% correct information. So we need to make sure the source that we're getting the information from is 100% credible, because that is very, very important when it comes to increasing our knowledge. And also, a point I wanted to mention is that technology allows us to be safe. Like, for example, it allows us to check the weather. Like, if say it's raining a lot outside, and if you never knew that without technology that it's going to rain, then you don't have an umbrella, or if there's going to be a hurricane or something like that. Like, those things are pretty major. Like, nowadays we get these Amber Alerts, like, there's a tornado warning, or this happened or that happened. That just simply allows us to be aware of what's going on in our society, so then we can keep ourselves safe. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to keep ourselves safe in our best capacity. And also a point I wanted to mention, technology, now we have GPS. Back then, we had to use maps to like figure out where to go and everything. But now, since we have our screen technology, you just simply put in your location and you can find it. So that again saves a lot of time. I know back then, like first when we moved here, my parents would go online and they would, I'm just showing how technology is advanced. They would like print out the directions, and they like manually, my mom would say the directions to my dad, and then my dad would follow them. But now we have GPS integrated in our phones. So first we had them in our cars, and now we have them in our phones, where we can simply the GPS actually tells us where to go. So as technology is advancing, it really allows us to efficiently do things, and it allows us to acquire knowledge about things we really, really need to know as people in our society. So in that way, technology is very, very important. And speaking of technology, Azra, I'm going to come back to you. What do you personally, just like as a personal perspective, what do you like most about technology?
Oh yeah, my two favorite things about technology. Number one, it saves so much time. Because just like Rabab mentioned, right, when you're driving around, you don't even have to worry about, going on websites and finding the directions, because literally, even before you leave the house, what your phone does is it tells you if there's traffic in certain routes. So you know that you don't have to go there, you just have to go some other place where there's no traffic. The red shows up if there's traffic. So you can save like so much time and take the fastest route to wherever you have to go. Additionally, it helps a lot with homework, like Rabab also mentioned, because back in the day, if students or peers had questions, they had to wait and they had to meet up, form like physical study groups with their friends, or wait until class, or go after hours to school to meet with their teacher, or they have to hire a tutor, and again, pay money for a tutor, which kind of ties back to the cost efficiency, right? With technology, you have access to the answers to your homework, you have access to the content that you're learning, you don't even have to pay for a tutor anymore. So it's really, really helpful, because if you have any questions, you have anything, you don't have to go out of your way to physically walk somewhere or buy something or meet someone to find out what you want to find out. You could just type it, click search, and it's there. So it's really, really great. And I feel like we are so privilege, and we kind of take advantage of the fact that we have all that information, because if you just look a few generations ago, like the way people lived their lives back then was so time consuming, because they had to go and like manually, physically do everything. So it's really, really a big point that I'm trying to make here, because technology allows us to have so much free time, which we can use for other things as well. And for example, another thing that technology really helps us when it comes to saving time is that it does a lot of errands for us. Like technology does a lot of errands for us, such as shopping, eating, like bringing food, or even doing groceries, because in recent months, actually, it's been a thing that a lot of stores actually deliver groceries to your doorstep. I didn't know about this until like a few weeks ago, but apparently you can go online and you can just go to whatever store that you buy your groceries from. Most of the stores do this already, and you could just like put grocery items in your shopping cart and click deliver, and they'll have it ready for you. So I didn't know that was a thing, and that was really, really interesting. And then also online shopping, buying clothes, buying hardware, buying like other technological devices, buying furniture, buying houses, even like everything is online. So you really don't have to go out of your way to like buy stuff. I mean, I still go drive because I like to like actually see things, but for those people who don't have any time, you can literally just sit in a chair and buy whatever you have to buy, and it's really, really interesting. And then also it really helps with food delivery. Now we have a lot of apps that where you can order from any restaurant, and a car comes and delivers the food to your doorstep. So honestly, technically, if you play your cards right, you don't have to worry about eating, shopping, or doing groceries. So that's really, really interesting. So if you're a super like technology geek, just some heads up about how you can use technology to really help with that, with those time-consuming chores. So with that being said, if you have so much time left over, you can use that time for so many other things. Like, we have so much potential in this day and age because we have so much time and so many resources just at our fingertips if we only use them in the right way, we have the potential to do so much. We have the potential to make so many changes in our lives and to impact the society around us, because we have the privilege of free time with technology. We have the privilege of, saving a lot of money with technology. We have the privilege of being connected to the whole world with technology. Technology is such a beautiful thing if we just learn how to use it right. So it just comes down to us knowing our limitations. And then secondly, my other favorite thing about technology is that it's very, very convenient. Not only because of all the things that I previously mentioned, but it's convenient in the way that it helps you live a more simple life. And I know it might sound like controversial because technology kind of is proven to make our lives more stressful if we don't regulate our use. But if we use it correctly, it actually can make our lives so much more convenient because, for example, Islamically it is recommended to live a very simple life. Like a very, simple meaning it's okay if you have a big house. It's okay if you dress well. But simple meaning do not be attached to materialistic things. Simplicity of the mind, that's what Islam basically means. We know like Prophet Sulaiman, he had a whole kingdom, but he was still a simple man. So there's a big difference between what you own and how your way of thinking is. So Islamically, we should have a very, very humble and sincere mindset, and we should not be attached to these materialistic things. So in a way, technology really helps us with that because it can help clear a lot of things from our homes and from our mind. Brain clutter happens before our house is cluttered. So for example, files, right? Back in the day, my parents, my grandparents, they would have like boxes and boxes of files of things that they saved. But in today's day and age, we don't even need that. We can save files on the computer. We can save files on a USB drive. We can save files on Google Drive. We have so many resources and so many outlets which we can save our files, and we don't even have to worry about physical paper copies anymore. This also comes down to, when we're looking at the educational system, we don't really need textbooks, physical textbooks. We don't need physical homework because a lot of the things happen online. It saves you a lot of money. It saves you a lot of time. It saves you a lot of, clutter in your house because files and paperwork, they can stack up and they could just take up some people have like closets dedicated just to files. And we don't really need that in today's day and age because we could just have, it on the computer. Also, it helps with books. Books are very important. I personally love paperback books. I like the feel of books in my hands when I'm reading it. But if you love reading like me and if you keep buying books, you will eventually run out of places to store them. So like I mentioned before, you can just buy an e-reader and you can have thousands of books on there, and a lot of those books are free. A lot of those books are reduced price. Islamic books, informational books, or even just books to read for fun. So you can have access to all those books in just one device. It's like this thin, this big, and you can save the room for all these bookshelves. You don't even need those anymore because usually in homes we have bookshelves in every single room, and that's great, but you can just maybe have one bookshelf and all the other books that you're not going to actually constantly refer back to, you can have them just in your e-reader, and it's going to really help you save a lot of space. Also, for notes, like Rabab mentioned, when you're taking notes, when a speech goes on, you can just use your phone. You don't have to manually carry around a notebook everywhere you go. You can have your notes on your laptop on your phone, when you can pull them out whenever you want to. You don't have to be like, oh my God, I left my notes at home, I have to go refer back to them. You don't have to do that because you have everything just in your phone. All your reminders, your notes, your calendars, your alarms, your everything is just on your phone. Your checklists, people can make checklists on your phone. There's so many ways via technology that you can stay organized. There's so many different resources, applications, websites that help you stay organized with your life. And then also it helps you with, pictures. A lot of us have boxes and boxes of albums. And, I know developing pictures and going to the store, getting them printed out is a hassle. And I know some people really love keeping photos in a box because they're very sentimental. But you can keep thousands and thousands of pictures online without even having to go and print them out. So that saves a lot of space as well. And there's so many other examples. I'm just mentioning these because they're just some of the few. And it helps us because I know a lot of the times we are sentimental people and we like to keep, books and photos, and we like to keep paperwork. But honestly, at the end of the day, that just kind of encourages us to be materialistic if we keep hoarding all those things. So just having everything just on a technological device, it kind of helps us be more detached to these things that we should not be attached to, and it helps us focus on other things. And it's psychologically proven that if you have a clutter-free house, it really helps clear your mind. If you have a clear home, it helps clear your mind. So if we have a cluttered house, it really is not how we should even live as a Muslim, having a messy house. So technology really actually helps us in staying clean at the end of the day, helps us in living a clutter-free life, helps us in living a simpler life, having a simpler mindset, if only we play our cards right. Okay, if we get too obsessed with technology, then obviously we'll go the wrong way, we'll go the other direction. But if we play our cards right, we can actually have some positive effects of technology. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. It all comes down to how you use technology. Technology is such a wonderful asset, it's such a wonderful resource, but only if you know how to use it correctly. So once you master how to use it, it can really change your life for the better.
Azra, those are some really great and interesting points, really detailed, great points that you made about how technology can benefit us. And in the end, I think the takeaway here is that if we can use technology at the right time, in the right way, for the right purposes, we can live way more efficient lives and easier lives, of course, because of the efficiency, the cost efficiency, the time efficiency of technology. Now, when we're talking about technology, I kind of wanted to shift and talk a little bit about Bibi Zainab, salamullahi alayha. Bibi's, in the time of Karbala, they didn't have all of this technology available for them. They didn't have any screen technology. And it was difficult, of course, to communicate because it would take a lot of time. And, Bibi Zainab, salamullahi alayha, was the person who communicated all of this to the people outside of Karbala. If it wasn't for her, then people wouldn't know about the events of Karbala, and they wouldn't know about the accuracy of the events of Karbala. And this beautiful personality, she allowed this message of Karbala to be conveyed to the people. And if anyone else did it, who knows, in this day and age, things spread and like Azra mentioned, they become viral and they're not even correct. But Bibi Zainab, of course, she told the truth, and she gave the accurate representation of what happened in Karbala. And she spoke out in the Darbar of Yazid, and while she spread this message, she was going through so much physical torment and emotional torment that it was just, in all of these circumstances, she lost her brother, she lost her niece, she lost her own children, and losing people so close to you, we can't even imagine you losing one of these people. She lost many of these people super close to her, and a lot of her family was gone after Karbala. And just going through that, and of course going through the physical, that was the emotional torment, and going through the physical torment by Yazid's army, and especially the fact that Bibi Zainab salamullahi alayha was very particular about her hijab and about her parda. And actually, what used to happen was, when she was a child, when she was very young, what would happen was she would go and visit the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's grave, and it was really close to her house. However, parda was so important to her that whenever she went, her father, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he would always go with her. On one side, he would stay with her, and they would go at a time when it was dark, so no one could look at Bibi Zainab salamullahi alayha in the bad way. And her father would go with her, and then her brother would stand on the other side of her just to protect her from the outside world, so then people wouldn't look at her in any bad way whatsoever. And she was, at that time, she was so young. She was probably 7 years old. She was so young, and she cared about Barda this much. And when it came to Karbala, Yazid's army, they treated her so badly. They took away her parda. And just imagine, even us, especially if you wear hijab normally, for me personally, if I can't go out without a hijab, if I go outside without a hijab, then I know I would feel something's missing, because I'm so used to keeping myself in that little shell. That's kind of what hijab does for us. It keeps us modest, and kind of it keeps us protected from bad eyes. So, but in Karbala, this essential thing was snatched from her. And so just imagine a lady who from such a young age cared about the parda, was if that was taken away from her so brutally, and from the people that she loved, the other ladies, and it was a really traumatizing experience for her. And the ladies, they were dragged across the streets of Sham, and their parda was taken away, and it was just a horrible, you can't even imagine being in such a situation. First of all, being in so much physical and emotional torment, and at the same time having her especially, the lady who advocated parda the most, having that parda taken away from her and having her just exposed to the world like that, that was just really must have been, we can't even imagine how hard and difficult that must have been for her. And you know, when Imam Zain al-Abidin, when he used to be asked, you know, what was the most difficult time for you in Karbala, he would say that Sham was the most difficult time for me, because looking at his own, the people who were closest to him going through these things and having their chadar snatched away from them, and you know, seeing these women dragged across the streets, that was the most difficult time for him. So we can just simply imagine that, you know, that must have been so difficult for Bibi Zainab Salaam alayha and the other women. So when we look at her example, we really need to learn, first of all, for the ladies, of course, that hijab is a very important and crucial aspect of our lives, and we should really not take it lightly, as this such a great lady, she advocated it, and we need to understand the importance of hijab and, you know, stand up for it, and of course always wear it properly and everything. And we really should learn from her personality that she had great patience. Like, I know in another session we also talked about patience, about Bibi Sakina Salaam alayha's patience, and essentially all of the people in Karbala, they had a lot of patience. So we should really learn these two lessons, of course, recapping that. We should learn the importance of wearing hijab and the importance of having patience, and simply look up to these personalities of Karbala, because, you know, they will really allow us to implement a change in our lives if we really need to self-reflect. So of course we're not in, and I hope none of us, I know we're never going to be in a situation as they were in, and we should, that's why we should really learn from their situation and understand the greatness of their personalities and how they were able to bear this and what values they stood up for, like the hijab, of course. So coming back to you, Azra, do you want to share anything you want to say about Bibi Zainab Salaam alayha?
Yes, definitely. First and foremost, I want to say that she is a role model, not just for women, for females. She's a role model for everyone, like regardless of your race, your religion, your gender, your age. She's just a role model for everyone, because the amount of struggles that she went through, the fact that she had to lead the caravan in the aftermath of Karbala, it was such a big deal. Because when you think about it, when, you know, people asked Imam Sajjad alayhi salam what was the hardest part of the journey, he didn't mention Karbala. He said Sham 3 times. It was the hardest time of the entire journey. And the fact that Bibi Zainab had to really lead the caravan during that hard time and make sure, you know, everyone was taken care of, she had to take account of everything to make sure everyone was together, is very hard, especially considering the emotional and psychological and mental trauma that she just experienced in Karbala itself. Everyone was emotionally fatigued, but she really had to, you know, step up from that, and she had to really keep it in to make sure that she could manage all these people, because if she broke down, everyone would. So really she had to keep a brave face despite what's going on. A lot of people have the misconception that, you know, like, oh, if Bibi Zainab was so strong, she didn't feel anything. No, she did. She obviously hurt inside so much, but she had to really, you know, be strong, be patient, and, you know, push through, because that's what she had to do. That was her responsibility now that since her brother was martyred. Additionally, just the fact that she spread the message of Karbala to the public in the condition that she was in is such a, you know, a great achievement that she did. Because imagine where they come from, right? Back when Imam Hussein was, you know, trying to find people to help him, he had no supporters whatsoever. He only had 72 followers. And then even after that, when, you know, the Bibis and Imam Sajjad and the children were taken as prisoners, the people were fooled into believing that these were just war prisoners. They were like the public enemy. They did not know this was the Ahlul Bayt. So all they knew was that these people are, oh, they fought against the caliph of the time, they must be enemies. So the way they would ridicule the Ahlul Bayt, the way they would make fun of them, the way they would throw rocks at them, the way they would disrespect them was so upsetting. So the fact that Bibi Zainab came from a place where they had no supporters, came from a place where they had no supporters and a place where they were disrespected, to a place where she spread the word in such a way that she touched the hearts of everyone who heard the story. She touched the world in a way that even till today, like 1,000 years later, over 1,000 years later, the whole world cries for Imam Hussein. Even if people are not Shia, even if they're not even Muslim. You know, in India, you see Hindus coming and doing matam. They're coming and going in the jaluses. You have a bunch of non-Muslims going for Arba'in Ziyarat right now. You think every single person over there in Karbala is Shia right now? not at all. We have so many people who are non-Shias, non-Muslims even, who are actually coming and commemorating the sacrifice that Imam Hussein had to give for the sake of Islam, for the sake of the world, for the sake of humanity actually. So the fact that Bibi Zainab came from that place where, it was like rock bottom, no supporters, people would ridicule her to the point where she, really lifted the story of Karbala to an extent that even 1,000 years later, people, exchange stories. They come out, we wear black for 2 months, we listen to majlises, we have juluses, we listen to speeches, we cry and we cry and we cry. This all was because of Bibi Zainab's efforts and Imam Sajjad's efforts, the Ahlul Bayt's efforts, who, after Karbala, they didn't just stay home and start crying about what happened. They went out and they spread the message of truth. They didn't back down. They didn't let what Yazid did to them be, something that kept them in their homes. They didn't let Yazid take away their patience, take away their drive or their strength. They still had all this strength, and they went out and they spread the message regardless of all the torment that they had to go through. And that's something that's really great, because that in a way makes her such a great role model, because no matter what happens to you in your life, no matter how hard no matter how hard the trials and the hardships are in your life, you can always come back from that. You can always go and live on your life regardless of what happened in the past. And you've heard multiple times, don't live in your past, only learn from it, because the past is the greatest teacher, it's the greatest history lesson. And that's what we see in Karbala, because they say, for example, even Imam Sajjad, despite what happened in Karbala, even after that, people would say that he was, smiling, and he would have a positive mindset regardless of what happened. So it was hard to imagine someone who went through what he did, he was still really smiling, and he would not let the negativity of his past affect the atmosphere of his present, affect the company. And I'm sure Bibi Zainab did the same thing, because that's really important, to not let your past consume you. Use it to learn, use it to teach other people, but then leave it at that. And that's what we see in the event of Karbala. That's what we see with Bibi Zainab, that she used the past to spread the message, to inspire, encourage, and motivate other people to create a change for the better. And lastly, just to understand that the blatant disrespect that she was treated with is enough for us to look up to her like an admiration. Because a lot of the time when people disrespect us, we become so upset. We say, oh my God, who do they think they are? And we become so egotistic. We think, oh my God, we're so high and mighty, we don't deserve to be disrespected. And obviously none of us deserve to be disrespected, but whenever we're faced with that situation, we become so upset. But just to see how Bibi Zainab reacted to the disrespect, the fact that people were trying so hard to take away her honor and dignity, she still held a brave face. She still did not let them get to her. She still was strong, and she maintained her honor and dignity to the best of her ability. And to this day, we respect her as one of the most honorable people in the world. So just to show you that no matter how people treat you, never lose your honor, never lose your izzah, and always keep that with yourself. And that's something that Bibi Zainab is a great role model for.
Yeah, Azra, those are some really great and important points that you just made about Bibi Zainab Salaam alayha. And that really, so just to conclude this program, the takeaways from this program, number one, we spoke about the benefits of technology. Technology, if you use it in the right manner, and if you use it in a limited way, like I mentioned before, if you use it in the right way at the right time for the right purposes, and then you will ultimately, of course, lead more efficient lives. And technology is, in that way, it's a great benefit for us. It allows us to stay communicated, stay connected with our family, with other people, with our community. It allows us to be aware of current events that are happening. It allows us to acquire, number one, general knowledge, and number two, Islamic knowledge, which are both very crucial and elements that ultimately bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He tells us, and our Islamic values, of course, are acquiring knowledge. So, of course, technology allows us to easily and efficiently do that. And it's very efficient, like we emphasized throughout our program. It's cost efficient. It allows less waste of resources, less clutter, like Azra mentioned. And so overall, technology is a great asset if we use it for the right purposes, and if we use it in a limited way and not completely depend on it, because technology won't always be there for us. Our phone batteries, they can die, so we always need to have our alternatives and not completely depend on it, but we should use it as a valuable resource, as it is there for us, so we can, of course, take use of that. And number two, we talked about Bibi Zainab Salaam alayha and her great personality, and how she was able to spread the message of Karbala to the people who were not, of course, in Karbala and accurately spread that message. As we know nowadays, when we spread information, it can be false, and a lot of the times it actually is inaccurate, especially the stuff that ultimately goes very viral. So, but Bibi Zainab Salam Alaiha was able to effectively and accurately depict and demonstrate the events that happened in Karbala, the events that happened to her family. And she was able to do that, like Azra mentioned, it was a really beautiful point, that she was able to do that despite her physical and emotional torment that she went through. So learning from Bibi Zainab Salam Alaiha, we really need to learn the idea of patience and the idea of modesty, because of course she represented the hijab. She taught hijab to the world, and she cared about it so much from such a young age, where we didn't even understand hijab at the time. She did it so carefully that, you know, and like I mentioned, how she would go to her grandfather's grave, and how she would care so much about the hijab. And no matter where she went, she would always try to stay protected from other people, and the hijab allowed her to do that. So just learning from her example, we ultimately learn the importance of hijab and the importance of patience and the importance of the sacrifice that she and everyone else in Karbala made for us. And so these are kind of the takeaways. I hope you all learned something about technology and how you can use it in a really good and efficient way, and I hope you learned something about Bibi Zainab Salam Alaiha, or at least it reinforced your knowledge, because I'm sure a lot of the viewers know this information about her, but I hope that kind of reinforced your Islamic values and kind of hopefully gave you some insight into her character and her personality. So in the end, I hope you all enjoyed this program. I hope you learned something from it, and again, this message we continually give it at every youth perspective session, that, you know, continue going to majalis, take advantage of Muharram as it lasts, because it is coming to an end now, and, you know, take your notebooks to the majalis, acquire as much knowledge as you can, because, you know, this time only comes once a year. So go ahead and take advantage of that, and I hope you all learned something, and we hope to see you on Youth Perspectives next week. Thank you.